So at that point, I contact several lawyers on the street. They don't want to touch my case. They said, you don't have a prayer. It's completely at the discretion of the U.S. Attorney's Office whether to reduce your sentence. I said, okay, so nobody wants to touch it. At that time in prison, there still is a guy named Frank Amadeo. And Frank Amadeo is, he's a rapid cycling bipolar with features of schizophrenia. He used to be an attorney. Frank's in prison for stealing $180 million of the federal government's money and using that money to help fund his goal of taking over the world. Because God is telling Frank Amadeo he is going to be emperor of the world. And has been telling him that since he was a teenager. This is the guy that does my legal work in prison. He is certifiably insane, but he said he could get my sentence reduced. That's the guy you ought to interview, bro. He's amazing. He files multiple motions against the U.S. attorney. They fight him back and forth. He finally gets them to agree to reduce my sentence. They bring me back up to Atlanta, and they reduce my sentence by 7 years.
So now you're down to 19 years.
19 years, right. So then one day I'm walking on the compound, and there's a guy that's there named Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson is there for stealing $157 million of Ponzi scheme. He ran a Ponzi scheme where retirees and churches and pension funds gave him money to invest in silver. He's trading silver. He's actually not trading silver. He's actually just pocketing the money and spending the money. So he eventually gets caught and he gets sentenced to 19 years. And he goes to prison. And he's in the middle of cooperating against all of his, against several financial planners that had helped him in his scheme, right? He and I are walking around the compound, and we're talking, and he keeps mentioning that the Secret Service is looking for money. They think he's hidden money. He says he hasn't hidden any money. That sounds fine to me. Okay. Keeps mentioning it. This happens over the course of months. One day I say, why are you so worried about them looking for money and finding this money? You gave him the money. He told me he actually dug up silver, bullion and cash and gave it to him, like $6 or $7 million worth. I said, well, you gave him all the money, so you're good. Don't worry about it. It's not going to, don't worry about it. And he goes, and he says, well, and I said, you did give him all the money. And he goes, can I tell you something? He goes, can I trust you? And I said, probably not. And keep in mind, I was big on people saying, Matt, when's your out date? And I would say, well, it's 2030. But somebody could fuck up and tell me where they buried a body, and I could be out of here next week. I'm not doing fucking 26 years. I don't give a fuck about that gangster shit. There's nobody holding out. So I looked at him and I said, probably not. And he started laughing. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you something. He said, I did put some money away. So he tells me where he's put some money away. I waited about a month. Because, the problem was the government didn't want to give me a reduction the first time. So I know they're not going to do it this time. They didn't want to do it the first time. Anyway, I end up talking to my lawyer. I have to order my transcripts because I was writing my book. And so I needed to order my transcripts. And I call her and I'm talking to her. And she says, is everything okay? You need any help with anything? Everything going okay? What do you plan on filing any motions? And I said, no. I said, well, here, something is happening. Listen to this. And I tell her what happened. She says, let me make a few phone calls. About a week or two later, I get called into SIS, which is the internal security. And they say, hey, listen, we got somebody on the phone who wants to talk to you. And I go, about what? He gives me the phone, and it's a Secret Service agent. Secret Service agent says, we understand that you know Ron Wilson, and he's hidden some Ponzi scheme money. Do you know where it is? And I say, yeah, I do. but I want a fucking letter from the U.S. attorney saying you'll reduce my sentence. So they get me a letter from the U.S. attorney. And I tell them where the Ponzi scheme money is. They go grab the Ponzi scheme money. They grab the people that have it. They indict him and those two people. And then I turn around and they get sentenced. Wilson gets 6 more months. The other people get probation. And I'm sitting there like, okay, well, what about my reduction? And they go, we don't know what you're talking about. So I have to send in the letter to the judge. This is what they said in the letter. The judge says, I'm ordering an evidentiary hearing. Then they give me a lawyer. And this is all, by the way, Frank Amadeo filed all the paperwork. The crazy guy who wants to take over the world. Filed all the paperwork. They end up reducing my sentence by 5 more years. So Frank Amadeo got 12 years knocked off my sentence by filing paperwork with the government, when none of the sane lawyers on the street said I had a chance. The crazy guy got my fucking sentence reduced by 12 years. And that's how, with game time, that's how I ended up doing 13 years.
Okay. And you get out July of 2019.
Yeah. Less than a year ago.